She was a princess, beloved by all. Until one morning, she woke up, cursed. And the one who did it was the person she trusted most. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you are watching from. The story begins in the lush, vibrant kingdom of Uzuri, a land blessed by abundant rains and fertile soil. The people were joyful and prosperous, all thanks to their wise and beautiful ruler, Queen Zawadi, and her daughter, Princess Adanna. Adanna was not just beautiful, she was the living heart of Uzuri. Her laughter was like the first rain after a long drought, and her compassion was as deep as the great river that watered the kingdom. She spent her days not in the palace, but amongst her people, healing the sick with her knowledge of herbs, helping farmers till the land, and listening to the worries of the elders. Everyone loved her, and they whispered that she was the land's greatest blessing. But every light casts a shadow. The shadow in Queen Zawadi's court was her younger sister, Masika. Where Zawadi was warm like the sun, Masika was cold like a moonless night. Her heart was a small, shriveled thing, poisoned by a lifetime of envy. She coveted her sister's throne, her people's adoration, and most of all, the radiant beauty and love that Adanna possessed effortlessly. One evening, during the great harvest festival, the elders presented Adanna with a magnificent gift, a ceremonial necklace, its pendant a carved sunbird inlaid with a single, glowing amber stone that seemed to capture the very essence of sunlight. "For our future queen," the eldest of them said, his voice full of pride. "For she who carries the sun in her smile." The crowd erupted in cheers. But Masika, watching from her throne beside the queen, felt a hatred so sharp it was like a physical pain. That night, as she stared at her own reflection, severe and cold, in a polished bronze mirror, her jealousy curdled into a wicked plan. She ventured deep into the forbidden grove at the edge of the kingdom, a place where the old and dangerous magic still slept. There, she sought out a disgraced witch doctor, a man who traded in malice. "I do not wish to kill her," Masika whispered in the dark, smoky hut. "Death would make her a martyr, a story to be sung about for generations. I want her forgotten. I want her beauty, the source of her love, to be turned into the reason for her exile." The witch doctor, his face hidden by shadows, grinned a toothless grin. He concocted a potent paste from thorny vines, the venom of a whispering adder, and the dust of a shattered mirror. "This will not harm her," he croaked. "It will simply reveal the ugliness she hides within." The next morning, Masika went to Adanna's chamber, feigning concern. "My dear niece, you look tired from the festivities. I have brought you a special ointment from the far north to refresh your skin." Trusting and pure of heart, Adanna gratefully accepted. She smeared the cool paste on her face and lay down to rest. She awoke to a searing pain. Her skin, once smooth and the color of rich mahogany, was now covered in angry, raised welts and swirling patterns that looked like cracked earth under a merciless sun. She rushed to her mirror and let out a cry of despair. The face staring back was unrecognizable, monstrous. The news spread through the palace like wildfire. Masika was the first to arrive, gasping in feigned horror. "A curse!" she shrieked. "The gods have cursed her. This affliction is a sign of their displeasure. She must have committed a great evil." Queen Zawadi was heartbroken but refused to believe it. "She is my daughter. Her heart is pure." But Masika was cunning. She whispered to the people, "Will our lands remain fertile with a cursed queen? Will the rain still fall? Would you risk your children's futures for her?" Fear is a poison quicker than any adder's venom. Slowly, the people's love turned to fear and suspicion. They averted their eyes when Adanna walked by. The elders, afraid for their kingdom, reluctantly approached the queen. With a heart shattered into 1,000 pieces, Queen Zawadi made the most painful decision of her life. To protect the kingdom from panic, and secretly hoping to protect Adanna from the growing fear, she agreed. Adanna was to be sent away, deep into the untamed wilderness beyond the kingdom's borders, a place from which no one ever returned. As Adanna, cloaked and shamed, was led to the edge of the kingdom, Masika allows herself a triumphant smile. But she didn't notice the tiny, fallen amber stone from Adanna's necklace, secretly picked up by a loyal servant girl. The symbol that the sun was not yet extinguished. The guards left Adanna at the threshold of the dense darkness, a forest so ancient and thick that the sun was but a forgotten rumor. They could not meet her eyes, their shame palpable, before they turned and hurried back to the world of light. Alone, Adanna sank to her knees, the weight of her exile crushing her. The forest was a cacophony of strange sounds, screeches, rustles, and deep, guttural growls that seemed to vibrate through the earth itself. Every shadow seemed to move with malicious intent. But a lifetime of kindness had forged a spirit of incredible resilience in her. She thought of her mother's tear-streaked face, not of her aunt's betrayal. She would not give Masika the satisfaction of her death. "I am Adanna of Uzuri," she whispered to herself, her voice a frail but defiant thing in the overwhelming gloom. "My worth is not in my face, but in my hands and my heart." Her first challenge was survival. She found water by following the sound of a stream and recognizing purifying herbs her mother had taught her about. Hunger was a sharper pain. She saw birds eating bright berries, but remembering her lessons, she avoided them, knowing they were poisonous. Instead, she found a less appealing, but safe, tuber root. Her greatest tools were her observation and empathy. She did not fight the forest, she learned from it. She noticed how the monkeys avoided a certain thicket, and she did too, sensing a predator's lair. She saw which branches were strongest for shelter. One afternoon, a pitiful whining led her to a young antelope caught in a hunter's snare, left behind by some long-gone trapper. Its leg was raw and bleeding. Fear shone in its wide eyes. Masika's voice echoed in her memory, "The world is cruel. You must be crueler." But Adanna's heart answered differently. Gently, humming a soft lullaby her mother used to sing, she approached the terrified creature. She spoke to it, her voice a soothing balm. It stopped struggling. With careful hands, she broke the snare and used her torn cloak to clean and bind the wound with healing moss. "There you go, little one," she murmured. "Go find your mother." The antelope nuzzled her hand before bounding away into the undergrowth. Adanna felt a warmth in her chest, the first flicker of happiness since her exile. She had helped. She was still useful. The next day, as she searched for food, she heard a thunderous crashing. A massive forest bull, enraged and frightened by a falling branch, charged blindly through the trees, directly towards her. Frozen in terror, Adanna closed her eyes, awaiting the end. But the impact never came. She opened her eyes to see the very same antelope she had saved, now standing beside its mother, a great and majestic doe. The doe had stepped between Adanna and the bull, stamping her hoof and letting out a commanding snort. The bull skidded to a halt, shook its head, and turned away, disappearing into the forest. The doe turned her large, intelligent eyes to Adanna, dipped her head in acknowledgement, and then led her fawn away. Tears of gratitude streamed down Adanna's scarred cheeks. She had been shown kindness in return for kindness. The forest was not just a place of danger, it was a place of balance, of give and take. That night, as she huddled by her small fire, she felt less alone. The animals she had begun to care for were her silent companions. She started to build a simple life, a hut of woven branches, a small garden of edible plants. She missed her home terribly, but she was no longer a victim. She was a survivor. Unknown to Adanna, the wilderness held more than animals. Deep in the heart of the forest, in a sun-dappled clearing that seemed like a different world entirely, Prince Kato of the neighboring Golden Kingdom of Zura was also searching for something. He was tracking the legendary golden sunbird, a quest upon which his own future depended. His path and the scarred princesses were destined to cross, but when they did, it would not be as prince and princess, but as two souls lost in the same vast, whispering green sea. Prince Kato of Zura was not hunting for game. He was on a quest of redemption. Zura, the Golden Kingdom, was suffering. A mysterious blight was slowly withering their crops, and their famous golden mines were yielding nothing but dust. The royal shamans had spoken, only the feather of the legendary golden sunbird, a creature of pure light and magic, could restore life and prosperity to the land. Kato, brave and burdened by the weight of his future crown, had volunteered. He had been traversing the dreaded dense darkness for weeks, his fine clothes torn, his regal outfits worn down by exhaustion. He was lost, his supplies dwindling, and his hope began to fade like the evening light. He was also haunted. His father's words echoed in his mind, a king relies not on strength alone, but on wisdom to see the truth behind the illusion. Cato feared he possessed neither. One evening, frustrated and hungry, he attempted to hunt a rabbit with his bow. He missed it, his arrow skittering uselessly into the bushes. The rabbit, instead of fleeing, stopped and twitched its nose almost mockingly. Then it hopped away towards a specific trail, pausing once to look back at him. Curious, Cato followed. The rabbit led him to a clearing where the air itself seemed sweeter. And there he saw her. A young woman was tending to a small, neat garden. Her back was to him, her form lean and strong. She moved with a graceful purpose, singing softly to the plants. For a moment, Cato's heart leapt. A guide? A forest spirit? Hello, he called out, his voice rough from disuse. The woman turned. Cato recoiled. The firelight caught the horrific scars that marred her face. His princely training fought to mask his shock, but a flicker of it must have shone in his eyes. Adanna saw his reaction and immediately drew her cloak's hood over her head, her own eyes downcast in a familiar shame. You are lost, she stated, her voice quiet but clear. It was not a question. I am, Cato stammered, ashamed of his own instinctive revulsion. I am Cato. I seek the golden sunbird. Adanna looked at him then, really looked. She saw the weariness in his stance, the honesty in his eyes despite his initial reaction, and the noble purpose in his quest. She saw a man, not a monster staring at a monster. The sunbird does not reveal itself to those who come with only taking in their hearts, she said, echoing the wisdom of her own people. It comes to those who understand balance. She saw his confusion and his genuine need. Her kindness, her core nature, overruled her fear. You are hungry. Sit. Eat. She offered him a portion of her own meager meal, roasted tubers and wild greens. It was the most humble food Prince Cato had ever eaten, and yet, it tasted like a feast. As he ate, he told her of Zura Kingdom's plight, of the dying land, of his desperate quest. Adanna listened, and her healer's heart was moved. A blight, you say? What are the signs? She asked insightful questions about the soil, the color of the leaves, the behavior of the water. Cato, amazed, realized this scarred outcast possessed more practical wisdom than all his royal advisors. In return, she shared her own story, not as a princess, but simply as Adanna, a girl cast out from a distant land for a curse she did not understand. Cato's pity transformed into immense respect. He saw her not for her scars, but for her strength, her intelligence, and her profound goodness in the face of utter despair. 4 days, Cato stayed at the edge of her clearing, learning from her. She showed him which streams were safe, which plants could heal, and how to move through the forest without fighting it. He, in turn, helped her strengthen her hut and protect her garden. He made her laugh for the first time in what felt like forever, and the sound was more beautiful to him than any courtly music. He began to see the beauty in her eyes, in her spirit. The scars on her face became just a part of her, like the bark on a strong, beautiful tree. One morning, as a golden light filtered through the canopy, a brilliant flash of color shot past them. It was the golden sunbird, its feathers like molten metal, its song a crystal-clear note that hung in the air like a blessing. Cato grabbed his bow, his quest screaming in his mind. But as he notched an arrow, Adanna's hand gently rested on his arm. Do not take its life, she whispered. Ask for its help. The sunbird alighted on a branch just above them, tilting its head, its intelligent eyes watching them. Cato, taking Adanna's words and remembering the wisdom of his father, slowly lowered his bow. He bowed his head, not as a prince to a creature, but as one living thing to another in respect. Great sunbird, he said, his voice filled with earnest plea. My land suffers. It does not bloom. My people hunger. We do not ask for a gift without giving. We ask for your wisdom. What must we do to restore the balance? The sunbird listened. It did not fly away. Instead, it looked directly at Adanna and let out a soft, questioning chirp. The sunbird's gaze was not on the prince, but on the scarred woman beside him. It fluttered down, not towards Cato, but towards Adanna, landing on the extended finger she offered without fear. In that moment, Kato knew with utter certainty that the key to saving his kingdom was not a trophy, but the incredible woman the world had thrown away. As the golden sunbird, perched lightly on Adanna's finger, seemed to radiate a gentle warmth that seeped into her very bones. It tilted its head again and chirped, a sound that somehow formed clear pictures in her mind. She saw wilted crops, dry riverbeds, and sad faces. Then, the bird looked deep into her eyes, and she felt it sifting through her memories, her life in Uzuri, her exile, her kindness in the forest. It saw her pure heart. With a final, melodious trill, the sunbird shook its magnificent tail. One single, glowing golden feather loosened itself and drifted down, landing softly in Adanna's palm. It was lighter than air and pulsed with a soft, inner light. The bird then gave Kato a long, hard look, chirped once as if in instruction, and shot up through the canopy in a blaze of light, disappearing into the sky. Kato fell to his knees before Adanna, not in romance, but in awe and gratitude. "You did it. You saved my people." "We did it," Adanna corrected gently, placing the feather in his hand. "You chose wisdom over force. That is what a true king does." But as Kato held the feather, he knew his quest was only half complete. He looked at Adanna, this woman of immense strength and grace who believed herself to be a cursed outcast. "Come with me," he implored, his voice fierce with conviction. "Come to Zura Kingdom. Help us use this gift. Your knowledge of the land, of plants, we need you. I need you." The thought of leaving her solitary sanctuary for another kingdom terrified Adanna. What if they recoiled from her? What if she was shamed again? But Kato's eyes held no deception, only unwavering faith. "In Zura, you will be honored. I give you my word." Trusting him, she nodded. The journey back to the edges of the wilderness was different with Kato by her side. He was her protector now, and she his guide. When they finally reached the borders of Zura, they were met by a search party of Kato's guards. Their eyes widened at the sight of the scarred woman with their prince, but Kato's commanding presence silenced any questions. News of the prince's return with the sunbird's feather spread like wildfire. The people gathered in the central square, thin and anxious, their faces etched with worry. Kato stood before them, holding the glowing feather high. "People of Zura, we have been answered." He placed the feather on the barren earth at the foot of the great tribal totem. A wave of golden light emanated from it, washing over the land. The people gasped as the withered plants in the plaza's gardens shivered, straightened, and unfurled new, green leaves. A cheer began to rise, tentative at first, then thunderous. But Kato wasn't finished. He pulled Adanna forward to stand beside him. The crowd fell silent, staring at her scars. "Do not look with your eyes alone," Kato boomed. "Look with your hearts. This is Adanna." It was her wisdom, her kindness, and her pure heart that convinced the sunbird to grant us its aid. She is the reason the land blooms again. She is a healer, and she will teach us how to keep our land healthy forever. He then told them her story, of her unjust exile, of her survival, of her unwavering goodness. The people listened, their suspicion melting into awe and then into respect. They cheered for her, their savior. In the days that followed, Adanna worked tirelessly. She taught the farmers about crop rotation and natural fertilizers. She showed the healers new herbs. She moved among the people, and they grew to love her, not minding her scars, because her actions made the scars meaningless. Watching Kato with his people, seeing his justice, his intelligence, and his growing love for her, Adanna's heart began to heal. She realized she loved him too. One day, a traveling merchant from Uzuri arrived in Zura's market. He was selling beautiful fabrics and spices. His eyes nearly popped out of his head when he saw Adanna, surrounded by grateful people of Zura's kingdom. He rushed back to Uzuri with an incredible tale. The cursed princess was not dead. She was a beloved hero in a golden kingdom, cherished by a powerful prince. The news reached Queen Zawadi, who wept tears of joy. But it also reached Masika, who turned pale with fury and dread. Prince Kato, upon hearing the full story from the merchant, was enraged. He turned to Adanna. "We must return to Uzuri. Your people suffer under a lie, and your mother's heart is broken. It is time to face your past." He assembled a royal entourage and journeyed to the kingdom of Uzuri. As they approached the border, they saw that the once lush land was now suffering. Masika's rule, fueled by spite and not love, had caused the people to become unhappy and neglectful. The rains came less frequently, the land was beginning to sicken. They entered the royal court. Queen Zawadi, upon seeing her daughter, cried out and ran to embrace her, not caring about the scars. "My child! My Adanna!" Masika, on her throne, sneered. "You bring this cursed creature back? To poison our land further?" It was then that the loyal servant girl who had found the amber stone years ago stepped forward. She knelt before Queen Zawadi and Prince Kato. "I have something to show," she said, and placed the amber sunbird pendant in the queen's hand. This fell from the necklace the night the princess was cursed. Prince Kato took the stone. He looked at Masika's furious, guilty face, and then remembered the witch doctor, which the merchant had described in his stories. "There is a simple way to discover the truth," Kato announced, his voice ringing through the court. "The one who created the curse can break it. Let us bring the creator here. Let us see if this curse can be washed away." Masika's face went from furious to utterly terrified. The truth was moments away. The witch doctor was summoned, trembling before the assembly of two kingdoms. Under the stern gaze of Prince Kato, he broke, confessing everything and revealing the curse's antidote: water from the heart of the dense darkness, mixed with the tears of the one who wronged her. Masika had been exposed. But would she ever cry tears of remorse? The royal court of Uzuri was silent as a tomb. All eyes were fixed on the cowering witch doctor and the pale, rigid figure of Masika. The truth hung in the air, thick and ugly. "You will provide the tears," Prince Kato commanded Masika, his voice leaving no room for argument. "Or you will be exiled to a fate far worse than the one you designed for your niece." Guards brought a basin filled with clear water from the sacred stream in the heart of the wilderness that Adanna had described. They placed it before Masika. "Cry," Queen Zawadi said, her voice raging with a mother's fury. "Cry for the pain you caused my child. Cry for your jealousy. Cry for your treason." But Masika's eyes were dry. She clenched her jaw, her heart a fortress of pride and hatred. She could not cry. She would not. She glared at Adanna, her eyes spitting venom, but not tears. The people watched, their expressions shifting from shock to anger. They saw their suffering land, they saw their beloved true princess scarred, and they saw the source of all their misery refusing to atone. Adanna watched her aunt, not with hatred, but with a profound pity. She stepped forward. The crowd parted for her. "Aunt," she said softly. The word itself was a kindness Masika did not deserve. "Your jealousy has been your own prison. It has starved your soul. It has cut you off from love, from family, from everything that gives life meaning. Look at what you have become. Is this power? Is this victory? To be alone and hated?" Adanna's words were not an attack. They were a mirror, held up with compassion. She spoke not of her own pain, but of Masika's emptiness. "The tears you refuse to shed for me, shed for yourself. Mourn the woman you could have been." For the first time, Masika's defiance wavered. She looked at Adanna, not at her scars, but into her eyes. She saw no malice, no gloating, only a deep, unwavering empathy that was more powerful than any weapon. She saw the true beauty she had tried so hard to destroy. She looked at the angry faces of the people she had ruled through fear. She saw her sister, heartbroken but resilient. She saw the strong, foreign prince who looked at Adanna as if she were the most precious thing in the world. And she saw herself. A lonely, bitter woman on a throne of lies. A single, hot tear of shame welled in her eye. Then another. It was not a torrent, but a slow, painful trickle of genuine remorse for a life wasted in hatred. She bowed her head, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs as the tears fell into the basin below. The witch doctor, under guard, murmured the words of unbinding over the water. The surface of the water shimmered. Adanna dipped a cloth into the basin and brought it to her face. She washed the scars that had defined her for so long. The people watched, holding their breath. The angry, cracked patterns began to fade. The welt smoothed out. The skin healed, not to erase the past, but to integrate it, leaving behind only the faintest, softest silvery lines, like the gentle map of a journey survived. She was whole again. She was Adanna. A collective gasp of wonder filled the room, followed by a roar of joy and applause. Queen Zawadi embraced her daughter, weeping freely. But Adanna pulled back and looked at Prince Cato. For a terrifying moment, she feared everything would change. Would he still see her now that she was fixed? Cato stepped forward. He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs gently tracing the faint silver lines. His eyes held the same awe, the same respect, and the same deep love they had held in the forest. "My love," he whispered, for all to hear. "I fell in love with the woman who sang to the plants and healed the antelope. I fell in love with your courage and your wisdom. These," he gently touched the faint scars, "are just a part of your story. They do not define you. Your heart does. And your heart is the most beautiful thing I have ever known." He knelt before her, and before the gathering of two kingdoms. "Princess Adanna of Uzuri, will you do me the greatest honor? Will you return to Zura not as a healer, but as my queen? Will you rule beside me?" Adanna's answer was a radiant smile, more beautiful than any unblemished face, because it was filled with hard-won joy and love. "Yes," she said. "I will." Justice was served. Masika, stripped of her titles, was exiled not to the wilderness, but to a small, solitary house where she would live a life of quiet reflection, forever cared for but forever alone with the memory of her choices. The union of Uzuri and Zura kingdoms was celebrated for a full cycle of the moon. Adanna, with her knowledge, helped heal Uzuri's land, and the rains returned, richer than before. Prince Cato and the now Queen Adanna ruled Zura with wisdom and compassion, and their kingdom entered a new golden age, a testament to the balance of giving and receiving. And often, on clear mornings, a flash of gold would be seen dancing in the skies above both kingdoms. The sunbird, it seemed, approved of the happy ending it had helped create, a reminder that true beauty is never skin deep, and that kindness, no matter how cruelly tested, always finds its way to the light. Thank you for watching. Please share your thoughts about the story in the comment section. I will love to hear your opinion. Also like and share the story.